Oh, hey there. Hello and welcome. It is time for the AEW Dynamite review here on the MrWarrenHayes Show YouTube channel and podcast locations, wherever you can find the MrWarrenHayes Show, a pro wrestling podcast. This is what you're listening to today on Thursday, August 31st. Hello and welcome there's a fair chance that if you might be new here and this is your first time that you listen to anything I do. I appreciate it. Look, there's a whole bunch of new subscribers that popped in, and I guess things are going well, so that's always a good sign. But thank you, everyone. I'm talking about on the YouTube side of things. Lots of new people popping in. That's amazing. And then we do this every Thursday. We just sit down and recap the previous night's Dynamite. That's essentially what we do. We're going to do this on Sunday for Collision 2. We're going to sneak this in before All Out happens. So I'm glad you're here. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the continuous support. Also, on the audio side of things, y'all are fantastic. You want to talk about support? Likes, subscriptions here on YouTube, and ratings and reviews over on the podcast, on the audio side of things, on your favorite podcast application. Those things really do help growth tremendously. So I'm only assuming that me pestering everyone to leave likes and stuff is actually paying off. So I'm going to continue. You can't prove me wrong here. I must be doing something right. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Yeah, I mean, look, we're going to get right to it. The August 30th edition of Dynamite, the Dynamite after All In, essentially, is what we're going to be talking about. Took place at the Hoffman Estates now Arena, and I appreciate, like, this is from Cage Match, right? I appreciate Cage Match differentiating between, Hoffman Estates and Chicago, because I was told by many local Chicagoans, it's probably Chicagoites, people living in Chicago, that you can't in good faith call, Hoffman Estates Chicago. You can't, because it's too far away. It just doesn't work. So I'm pretty sure that the distinction on Cage Match is important, despite the fact that everyone's going, hello, Chicago, everyone coming out. They're in Hoffman Estates. Of course, it's not as captivating for the mind, if we were to, it's not as captivating for the imagination. That's what I'm trying to say. If we end up with if we talk about Hoffman Estates as opposed to Chicago, you get an impression. Hoffman Estates feels like, what is it? Just like a bunch of apartment buildings? Is it like a gated community? What is this? This took place at the Now Arena. 3,387 distributed tickets according to WrestleTix as of today, for a setup of 4,439. We're not far off the average, but still we're not breaking attendance records here, folks. Very, very average stuff. Leading into All Out, which is happening. What happened to my voice there? All Out. All leading to All Out. What great audio. All leading to All Out, which is happening, of course, this weekend, and on September 3rd, the big Labor Day show, which is, by the way, happening in Chicago. This, you can't, you can't fool around with this too much. This is happening at the United Center in Chicago. Since I won't have an opportunity to really talk about it more before the day of the event, and then, there's a lot of points that might be moot by then. Right now, according to WrestleTix again, 9,244 tickets have been distributed for a setup of 11,001 so far. If we continue down this path, we are on pace for, well, the show is already drawing better this year than the 2022 show. So the 2023 All Out, despite, everything that we've been told about, it's never going to work, with Wembley 1 week previous, so on and so forth. It's right now, according to WrestleTix, of course, but who is fairly, rather reliable. I don't want to say fairly reliable because that sounds off. Rather reliable. Their estimates right now have the tickets at 9,244. All Out last year had 9,039 distributed tickets. So right now, All Out this year is outpacing last year. The question is, will it outpace the 2021 All Out? Which was, of course, CM Punk's first pay-per-view, his first match since returning, right? It was the Darby Allin match. 10,164 tickets were distributed. That they posted this as a sellout. Look, because we're not all that far off. We're like less than 1,000 tickets, and we're right up there with last year, with 2 years ago when it was the big Punk return. I don't know what you need to read into this. I don't know if you want to add this to any discourse that you have in regards to Punk's drawing capabilities or not, because for all intents and purposes, right now, as of when I'm recording this over lunch on August 31st, again, this, things move fast. The CM Punk has not been announced for All Out this weekend. We have 3 more hours of AEW programming between now and the Pape. So anything can happen, right? Anything can, we've got, there's even an angle with Ricky Starks challenging, who wants to challenge Ricky the Dragon Steamboat on Collision on Saturday to a strap match on All Out. Now, if you ask me, that's nonsense and it won't happen. But you can absolutely see Dragon going, you know what? I won't accept because I'm 70 years old, you little asshole. You want to beat up on an old man? No, I'll have someone fight for me by proxy. And then he picks CM Punk. So that's possible. I'm not saying that this is not going to I am absolutely not sitting here and telling you CM Punk is, his suspension is preventing him. I went over the entire CM Punk stuff on the podcast this week. And if you want to jump in on it, pop it right in. It's in the midst of my All Out review that we talk about everything that CM Punk was up to this week with Jack Perry and, acting insane minutes before the biggest pay-per-view show in the history, the biggest wrestling show in the history of pro wrestling. Just a few minutes before that, he decides to throw a fit. Decides to conduct business, as they like to say. So I'm not rehashing all of that, but I think you already, I think you figured out how I feel about it. So we're not rehashing that. So is he suspended? Is he not? And so on and so forth. Will he be on the card? I'm gonna find out at the same time as all of y'all. I have no indication. My hunts are talking. There's nothing about this at all. So I can absolutely see Ricky Steamboat going, yeah, no, I'm not going to fight, but I'll have this guy fight for me, and CM Punk comes out. I think that's entirely a possibility. It could be anyone else on the roster. Could be a nice surprise. Could be a nice return. I saw people throwing around Hangman Adam Page, and I'm like, you know what? You know what would make this even more delicious? That this would happen on Collision if it was Page. Anyway, I don't want to get into fantasy booking. I don't, and we got more than enough stuff to talk about before, instead of me going down this path. But clearly right now, the show's on pace to do better. The show is on pace to do better than last year, and it might come close. I don't know if what do we need? Like according to WrestleTix, of course, like about 900 tickets or so, little less than 900 tickets. I don't know if AEW can push 900 extra tickets from now to Sunday, but there will be more tickets sold. There will be an uptick. So we're closer to 2021 All Out than last year, which I think that's a good sign. I think it's a good sign because I think it is reasonable to believe that as far as the pay-per-view business goes, if we believe Tony in saying that the numbers for All Out were tremendous and huge, and that everyone bought it and, so on and so forth, I think it is reasonable to expect All Out to buck the trend that AEW has had recently over the past year or so regarding its pay-per-views being, in the vicinity of 135 to 145,000 buys. That's where they've settled. And, I'd say even the average, let's just call the average 140,000. That's where they've been. That's where they've been living at for the past few months. And I think those are tremendously good numbers and they've been stable. I think that it is reasonable to expect All Out to underperform because of Wembley, because they're both being billed as premium events. Notice I forgot a word here, or I omitted a word, and that was my choice. But, both like $60 tickets to watch this from home, and you just spent your $60 on Wembley, are you going to spend another $60 on All Out? And a lot of people in my, around me were saying, well, it depends on the card. And a lot of the card has been revealed, and I don't think there is tons of motivation for a lot of people around me to buy the show because of how the card looks right now. In all honesty, it doesn't look like a mind-boggling must-watch pay-per-view. I've seen people compare it to a very good episode of Dynamite. I don't even look, if you want to go down there, I'd say this would be an excellent episode of Dynamite. This would be one that we'd be buzzing about for weeks beforehand, because this is tremendous stuff. Orange Cassidy and Jon Moxley, Okada, Omega and Takeshita, like those are marquee matches, but maybe not, the earth-shaking, maybe not the earth-shaking matches that get people emotionally involved into it, right? Again, it is nonsense, and we have to hammer this home every time, regardless of the build, regardless of what, how things are put together, you should never bet against the quality of an AEW pay-per-view, because most of the time, they're great shows. All Out, great show. Aside from two things, if you want to hear my full thoughts, I gave my full review on Tuesday. But overall, I can't say that All Out was a bad show. I can't even say it was an okay show or a good show. I thought it was a great show. Just great matches all throughout. Again, except for two. And then, even if you're not enchanted with how the build goes and so on and so forth, this is going to be a great show. Like, it looks like on paper, I've been using the term scrappy. It looks like it's a scrappy show. I used great. I want to pump the brakes. We'll use those qualifiers once the show is done. I apologize for jumping the gun on that one. Got a little excited there. But it's a scrappy looking pay-per-view. And in a good, put together, and, people always coming, I know a lot of people are like, what the fuck, Shane Taylor and Samoa Joe? If you're going, what the fuck, Shane Taylor, you've never watched Shane Taylor wrestle. That's all I have to say, because the idea of Shane Taylor versus Samoa Joe on this pay-per-view, I'm like, sure, maybe it feels a little offbeat. Okay, I'll give you that. But Jesus Christ, that's gonna rule. Like that's a match I am absolutely looking forward to. Mox and Orange Cassidy is going to be a sneaky good match. Both of these guys are going to turn up here. So the point I'm trying to make is that the card is good. It looks good on paper, and I think there's more to love here than the opposite. I think that AEW's track record speaks for itself. Most of the time, AEW cards deliver and over-deliver. But I can understand why people are like, I'm going to skip this one. There's nothing that connects with me. There's no emotional attachment. I'm just so exhausted. I'm like, whatever reasons. I absolutely understand that. And to be completely transparent with you, completely honest, I don't even know if CM Punk would be like, and disregarding everything, okay? Disregarding the meta. I don't even think CM Punk would move business significantly if he were on the show or not at this point, because he's been all over the place, because his builds have not been good. And I say builds with plural because this has been a theme that when we've on the Collision review, we've been talking about how CM Punk is he's feuding with everyone, and he has feuds made up in his head too, trying to start things with MJF. MJF isn't even giving him the light of day. He has his imaginary feud with Hangman Adam Page too. Now he's probably got another one he's trying to build off of. But but like on kayfabe, Samoa Joe, Ricky Starks, Jay White, like there's a gaggle of people that he's been throwing everywhere as if to say, well, one of these is gonna stick. So I'm not saying that he's not a draw. I'm not saying that he's washed or whatever. What I'm saying is, in the context right now of CM Punk, kayfabe, storyline, what he's doing, he's so spread thin and all over the place. And I don't even know if he has an emotional investment match that people will get into, that people will be like, hell yeah, this is the thing. The big match that everyone is waiting for. I don't even think he has it. No one has it. Outside of Omega and Takeshita, which has been it's been hinted at and teased at for weeks, months even if you want. But it's been a back burner. It's been something that's been overshadowed with the BCC Elite feud, and now we're jumping right back into it, and like it all makes sense. Don't get me wrong. In storyline, what I'm saying is the emotional investment in it, right? Now I know. Look, Kenny was said to be ill, and that's why he wasn't on Dynamite yesterday, and that's why they did the gimmick with the, which I thought was very good, by the way. The gimmick with the with the move by move analysis by Callis. This is what you got to do. Kanesuke, you got to do this. You got to do this. And I'm looking at all of that. I'm like, okay, well, that's a shame. They should have been in the middle of the ring. They should have tried to get at each other. There should have been a pull apart brawl, or Takeshita knocks him the fuck out. Him being Omega. That's what should have happened. That's not what we got. Circumstances. Look, what are you gonna do? This is the main problem that we have right now with AEW booking up and down the card, is that things are booked so last minute, so slapdash, that when things happen, and by golly gee, there's a lot of things happening in AEW. When things happen and things get thrown for a loop, you're like, well, the build is suffering. If this had been like on week 3 of the build to this pay-per-view, and we still had 3 weeks to go, Kenny Omega not showing up, you'd be like, well, that's not so bad. But Kenny Omega not showing up because of illness, a few days before the pay-per-view for a match that has like no emotional investment, no real build to it, nothing, just in its bubble, that you could push and add more intensity to it, now you're like, oh shit, we're fucked. We're fucked. There's nothing to this build now. But we always talk about build, and I'm cognizant of this. We talk about the build, but the pay-per-views, most of the time, I'd say 85% of the time, you can check me on my math, are fantastic. They're just great shows. So, look, this all came off of the point that I thought this show was doing really good, and will the show this year be able to hit the attendance of All Out in 2021? We'll find out. I mean, still like 9,000 tickets in the United Center. Like, you need to get 10K people in the United Center, right? Like that. Anyway, I've talked enough about attendance and pay-per-views. I'm 21 minutes in. We haven't even started talking about the show. Let's go. Jon Moxley defeated Komander to open up the show. Good opener, quite strong. I liked it. They do a great story with Komander here, breaking Mox down, strikes, precision blows, well-placed moves as opposed to just like running. Like it felt like it was smartly executed by Komander, who wasn't just like running to the ropes trying to do these fast-paced moves. No, at some point he's like toe-to-toe, but his strikes are smart. He's just not laying into him. He's doing good work. Goes for the rope walk 450, but Moxley, I think he lifts his knees if I'm not mistaken, and then Mox strings together the King Kong Lariat, the pile driver, the rear choke, and a Juji Katami for the win. So good stuff. I'll tell you one thing. Luchadors putting over the heavyweights on AEW Dynamite just proves to us that the spirit of WCW Nitro lives on even today. Look, I'm on the record. I've talked about it. Komander never wins in the Tonyverse. Not even in Ring of Honor. So here's the thing. Like, I'm super excited at the idea of having these great luchadors on my TV, but it'd be nice if once in a while they got to win. And you can just put them in a cool match and have some guys win some matches. Like Komander right now, I'm like, all right. Feels like a J Brown right now. But a good opener, strong opener. To note, Jon Moxley came out alone. And I think this was, by design, and it made sense. And anyway, good opener. We get then a video package for Orange Cassidy's International Championship reign, which is fantastic. There's a lot of people coming around on Orange Cassidy after the promo last night, but you, the A+ audience of this D-List podcast, have already been on the Orange Cassidy train for months at this point, because I have been putting this boy over. And you guys know, and gals and non-binary pals, let me not exclude anyone here, you all know how great he has been. Just a tremendous run. What did they say last night? 30 successful defenses. This is an all-time run. This is an all-time run, especially by modern standards. This is an all-time championship run. A legitimate one, a real one, a true one. We're not inventing imaginary milestones. And the guy goes out, I say this every time, has good to great matches every single time. And he's been on practically every week. You can count on one hand the number of weeks that Orange Cassidy has not been on TV wrestling since the beginning of his run. It's tremendous stuff. We'll talk about it a little later. We see the Young Bucks in their locker room at, was shot at Wembley. And they're like, what's supposed to be our night? They're moping. And FTR arrive and they said, hey, brother, we showed you respect. What's the deal? They're like, oh, well, we're just disappointed. We got worked up. This is the company we founded. And I'm like, yes, see, someone listens to my show because this is the verbiage. Well, I might be exaggerating, but that's the verbiage I've been using. This is their show. It's their company. I want the dominant Young Bucks title run. I want it. It should happen. FTR's having it, which is fine. Don't get me wrong. I like FTR. But this is the Bucks' home. It's their place. Anyway, the Bullet Club goal then appeared. They were like in the far end of the locker room. They were looking, and then they were just like in the corner of the locker room, and the Bucks never saw them there. I don't know about locker room logistics in England, so it was just a weird shot because FTR come in through the door to the locker room where the Bucks are there, and the Bucks are going, and then they talk, right? But then Bullet Club Gold arrived from the other side of the locker room. Was there a door there? I can only assume there was a door there, and that they weren't just in the corner in the shadows, and the Bucks never noticed, or FTR. Anyway, eventually this turns into a match for All Out, where the Bullet Club Gold, all four guys, will take on FTR and the Young Bucks, who agreed to a truce, I guess, to knock some sense into these guys. That should be a lot of fun. Especially, look, the Guns are what they are, but you have Juice and Jay, who have run so many multi-man New Japan matches. They know how, they know how to turn it out. I'm fine with this. I think this will be a good little match. Get a recap of Saraya winning the AEW Women's World Championship, which leads us to Toni Storm chatting with Renee Paquette backstage. And Toni she has sunk to even deeper depths of depression. And it is fantastic. Of course, I don't take joy in people's depressions. Don't get me wrong. But when it's done in such a fashion, in such a caricatural fashion, I enjoy it. And she says now she has no more friends. Saraya went off script. Ruby left me there to die. No friends, no title, no future. And she gets mad and she walks away. She says, everything is coming apart. I hate everything. I even hate these shoes or something. And she chucks in the shoe throwing is fantastic. You know what would have made this better? You know how on Collision, when she does her promos, she doesn't know who Lexi Nair is? Where she says the girl last week, she gets interviewed one week by Lexi Nair. The next week, she gets interviewed by Lexi Nair again. And she says the girl last week was very rude, but it's the same girl. Lexi's like, it was me, And then she gets set up with Renee. And it would have been really fucking funny if she had said, Lexi, she starts off, Lexi, I'm depressed. That would have been tremendous. But this is all tremendous. Toni Storm right now is an unequivocal bright spot on AEW weekly programming. Like, systematic. Not only is she a tremendous wrestler, but this I am depressed stuff, her Jane Crawford era, her disaffected Hollywood starlet era is tremendous stuff. Chris Jericho hits the ring, talks about the majesty that was All In, and his match with Will Ospreay is going to be one of his favorites. It's a show he'll never forget. He also mentions that Fozzy played in front of their biggest audience the night before, whatever. I don't know. But there's something that he would like to forget, and that is how he treated Sammy Guevara, his brother, Sammy Guevara. How he treated him after the match, and he wants to get it off his chest. So Sammy gets to the ring. Jericho tells him that, outright tells him, I'm sorry for pushing you after the match. I was frustrated in the loss, and I shouldn't have taken it out on you, Sammy. I just thought you were going to do more I didn't know if you had done everything you could do to help me out. But, I saw the replay, and he, shows it on the Tonytron. And I saw the whole thing when with the bat, like there was this one bat shot. So they replay that. And he's like, I'm really sorry. I apologize. The boys shake hands. Jericho says he feels better. He's been playing the match over and over again, but tried to figure out how he could have won, or if Sammy had hit him with the bat, had hit Ospreay with the bat harder. Guerrero says, "Whoa there, partner." Says it's, it's funny because he figures, what if Jericho had hit him a little harder with the Judas effect? Maybe he could have got it done. Jericho says he doesn't want to add, he doesn't want Sammy to get insulted or get angry, but sometimes he asks Sammy to do things and they'll turn out the way that he had envisioned it. Uriah says, "Oh, did you envision me leaving my pregnant wife to fly to London to help you and not win the match?" And Jericho emphasizes that you were on a show that a lot of talent backstage would have killed to be on, which he's not wrong. Anyway, they do a lot of passive aggressive back and forth shtick, including Guevara bringing up the Outback Steakhouse belt incident. And Jericho though, he says, I want to bring back Le Sex Gods. And we're going to go for the tag team titles, you and I. So they're going to have a match on the road to the titles next week. So so that we're going down that road there again. If I had been Chris Jericho, I would have been something, I would have, if I had been Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara brings up the steakhouse thing, he says, you went to eat steaks at a steakhouse and you lost the titles. I would have been, if I had been Chris Jericho, I would have said something like, said, "That's right. Yeah, I lost the championship outside a steakhouse, and that would have never happened if I had ordered Omaha steaks right to my door. That's right. I could have had perfectly aged steaks delivered directly to my door, and each steak is trimmed by master butchers and backed with a money back guarantee." Like but that would have been really funny if you ask me. So we're doing this. Obviously, look, this is probably another angle to put another guy over. Chris Jericho has to start winning matches. And I know a lot of people out there, a lot of you listening, are saying, "Warren, you've lost your mind," because there's some people who have this unreasonable disdain for Chris Jericho. Now, if you don't like, as I always say, if you don't like him personally, you don't like his politics, that's a whole other thing. But I'm talking in the context. I'm here to analyze pro wrestling for you. So in the context of what he's doing in AEW, he is irreproachable. And for some reason, people think he's always the center of attention. He's, he always wins and guys. He's always constantly putting guys over. And I can't harp on this enough. Constantly putting other guys over, having them win, putting them in big matches. His feud with Ricky Starks beat him clean twice. So what do we do? I don't know what to tell you. Now, if you don't like the push that the people that he's defeated get now, that's not Chris Jericho's fault. There's two people that you can blame for that, potentially. One of them being the wrestler, because it's a wrestler's job to stay over. And if he's not getting it done, that's not on Chris Jericho. And two, booking. If he's not being booked properly, if creative is being, sloppy and moronic with him, again, not Chris Jericho's fault. Jericho can only do as much as he can within the confines of his feud, of his program with that wrestler. After that, it's not up to him anymore. So, and yes, Chris Jericho is going to be on TV every week because he's Chris Jericho, because he's a star, he's a draw. And I am willing to put my hand deep into the fire on this one, that they have people lined up, that there are guys in that locker room, and I would even say there are ladies in that locker room lined up to feud with Chris Jericho, because that way they're guaranteed TV time every fucking week. But the thing here is that Chris Jericho hasn't won a big feud in forever. I think the last thing that where he really got a big win over someone that he was feuding with was Eddie Kingston, and that match was terrible, and it all petered out and wasn't great. But we have to stop pretending that Chris Jericho is this cancer that is destroying the locker room. He's doing his part. So this all leads me to looking at this and go, oh, so he's going to feud with Sammy, and this is to get Sammy over as a babyface. This experiment is still ongoing. Tony Khan believes that Sammy Guevara is going to be our babyface. Okay, let's see how this goes. He put him in the hands of Chris Jericho. Jericho's going to make sure that everything comes together. Now, all of this is going to be up to Sammy for this to work, especially once it's over. But again, we got Chris Jericho, who's going to be probably on the losing side of things. Again, and enough's enough. Yeah, the boy needs his heat back at some point too. A good heel, because he's going to be a heel in this situation with Guevara. We might have been flip-flopping here, babyface a little bit, tweening if anything, but he's going to be a heel with this Sammy Guevara stuff. Anyway. Blackpool Combat Club cut a promo where Moxley talks about his match with Orange Cassidy. This leads us to the New Japan Strong Openweight title match where Eddie Kingston successfully defended his title for the first time. Good for you, Eddie, against Wheeler Yuta. Another great reaction for Eddie Kingston. Beloved Eddie Kingston. And in this match, Eddie Kingston in the Kawada black and yellow, Yuta in the Misawa green and white. So that was not lost on me. Good heat segment by Wheeler Yuta. Eddie Kingston lands a tope, which, all right, let's go. Kawada chops and an exploder, a German suplex by Yuta, a Saito by Eddie, and it takes 2 back fists to take Wheeler down. Now, and Eddie wins. Interesting little thing here that we should always note when, on the types of finishers that are used and are required to put people away. Because Eddie also has the Northern Lights Bomb as a finisher, which he used a lot in New Japan. So, there's finishers, there's secondary finishers, and there's finishers that you use to put out, that you can use to just take out under guys. But then you have the big finishers to take out the prime main event guys, right? So the back fist, so there's still I'm not convinced as to whether the back fists are no longer Eddie's finisher, or are we transitioning to the Northern Lights Bomb? But whatever it is, let's say the back fists have become the secondary finisher. Well, Yuta had to take 2 of those to put him out. So that would indicate, at the very least, that Wheeler Yuta's standing is improving. If the lesser finishers aren't doing the job, or more particularly, if you need to land 2 finishers to take the guy out, that means that Wheeler Yuta's booking is rising slowly. He's no longer, you can't really see him as a prelim guy anymore, just a guy that you could take out with, let's say he was fighting Chris Jericho with a code breaker. You're going to have to pull out the Judas effect on this one, which is Jericho's top finisher right now. Or it could be that Eddie's arm, which was worked throughout the match, was just a little weaker and needed. Either way, I think this is an interesting little wrinkle to keep an eye on for Wheeler Yuta moving forward. I think this might be a little bit of a bump here, a little story bump in the career progression, kayfabe is at the very least, of Wheeler Yuta. After the match, Claudio Castagnoli comes to ringside to help Yuta back, and he completely no-sold Eddie Kingston. Didn't even look at him at all. And this led to a match. We're getting Eddie Kingston and Katsuyori Shibata at All Out versus Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta. See what I mean when I'm telling you? It's a scrappy little pay-per-view. Like, that match is pretty dope. Scrappy. Adam Cole and MJF talk at backstage at All In. And, Max cuts a fantastic promo. What do you want from me? He says, hey, you dropped me on my neck a little too much, but, now I'm taking a week off and I'm going to go have sex. I'm going to go have a baguette. This is basically what he was saying. Short, sweet little segment. Then we have Renee Paquette with Sammy Guevara. Don Callis comes in to schmooze Sammy, but Sammy's on to him. He says, shut the fuck up, hit the bricks, pal. And he's pretty aggressive about it, too. It's not like, no, he's like, hit the bricks. I know what you're trying to do. Jericho's my boy. Okie dokie. Then we get Adam Cole, who hits the ring, talking about All In. Says that, it hurt to lose in the main event, but, one day he'll get another shot. Right now he's worried about MJF. And then, Adam! 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 He does it like 3 times before Cole even acknowledges it. I'm like, come on. We heard him the first time. Roderick Strong, of course. He's there with the Kingdom. Roddy is upset, of course, that Adam cares more about MJF's neck than his. He still has the neck brace, of course. Mike Bennett is on the mic. Good little promo, I found. He says they used to be tight and they got signed to Ring of Honor together. They were, you were at my wedding. You did you put my bachelor's party, my bachelor party together. Matt Taven says, you jump shit to Bullet Club so that you can make all that sweet, sweet merch money. Then jump to Florida. We know what surrounded yourself with their old friends. You know what we're talking about here, NXT. Now he wants to come back here a changed man. Well, he didn't say that. Says he's a liar and a leech. He's always latched on to people. Now he's latched onto that corny Melvin MJF. I don't know how Max feels about that, but it's a funny line. And Roderick Strong basically says that he's entering himself into the Grand Slam tournament and do what Cole couldn't do, and that is beat MJF for the title. Cole says, well, you're not medically cleared. Roderick Strong says, fuck you, because I'm a legend. I'm a wrestling legend. So, I know a lot of people really don't like Roderick Strong and all of this. I think he, wrestling sometimes is just pure old fashioned corny, and this is what he's doing, and he's doing it well. It's over the top, it's exaggerated, and I think it's fine. I think it's fine. And again, everything that has to do with the MJF Cole storyline, everything that happens in the ring, in post-match promos, pre-match interviews, all this stuff, it all works for me. It all works. It's the vignettes I can't stand. I think they're stupid. And when we don't get matches and we get whatever we got in the main event of All Out. But listen, I'll tell you one thing. Very bold. Very, very bold right now for Dynamite, for AEW, to be like, we're going to start talking about the Arthur Ashe thing, and we're going to start teasing for the Arthur Ashe show, Grand Slam, because I think I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me just recontextualize here. I'm trying to say too many things at once, and we'll give a little more context. So there's an eliminator tournament that has been announced thanks to Roderick Strong. There's an eliminator tournament over the next few weeks to build up a contender to challenge MJF for the title at Arthur Ashe. I am so sick of these eliminator tournaments, boys and girls. I cannot do this anymore. And I think this is a symptom of how slapdash the booking has been. I don't think it's interesting. I don't think it's good. There's been too many of these. This is a default mode. I think it shows a lack of direction overall on a title that Previously, in very recent memory, it had been plotted out. We knew where this was going. Everything felt like there was a purpose around the world title. Now it's like, well, we're not building anyone anymore. We're doing tournaments to determine challengers. What are we doing? So we're doing that for Arthur Ashe for Grand Slam on September 20. And now we're teasing Roderick Strong versus MJF for the title at this stadium show, which is bonkers. That is a ballsy fucking move. That is a ballsy move, because I don't know. Call me off my rocker, call me a fuddy-duddy, but MJF versus Roderick Strong, as much as I am interested in the match because they're both great wrestlers, doesn't scream sellout show. And it is a doubly ballsy move when you consider that the Arthur Ashe tickets are not moving. 5,389 as of today, right now, according to WrestleTix, have been distributed. At this point last year, we had many, many more tickets sold. I think there were double tickets sold at this point last year. The first Arthur Ashe show, 2021, 19,079. Last year, bit of a drop, 13,321, excuse me. Again, all according to WrestleTix. And now we are not even close to cracking 10K. And we're teasing MJF versus Roderick Strong. There is nothing else announced for the card so far. I get it. I just think it is a fucking ballsy move. That's all. Otherwise, I like the segment. I thought everyone... Matt Taven's not necessarily the greatest promo. It's fine. I think Mike Bennett was very good. I enjoyed this. I thought it was good. And I know people are really annoyed with it. They're annoyed over the entire Adam... if you want to hear how I feel about the Adam Cole MJF feud, I think I talked about it for like 37 hours on the podcast, on the MrWarrenHayes show this past week. So that's available for you right now on demand on YouTube or on audio as well. So I'm not going to rehash all of that, but I think a lot of people are really annoyed by how this is going, and I understand why. I expressed everything, and I myself am very partial. Not partial. I am very conflicted. That's the word I was looking for. Because there's, as much as I like a lot of things, there's a lot of things that I really don't like. I think everything was fine here. I enjoyed this. I thought it was a good segment. I just don't know if the end game here is going to be interesting. We got Penta Oscuro, who's cutting a promo for his match later on with Orange Cassidy. Then we had Britt Baker, Hikaru Shida, and Kris Statlander defeating Sakura, Marina Shafir, and Nyla Rose in a trios match. I think this was okay, but it made me realize that I missed the multi-women matches that AEW was running for a while. You remember that? A couple of months ago, every week or so you'd get a trios match, a tag team match, an 8-person match, an 8-woman match. You know, and they felt like Road 2 shows, but they were telling great stories in the ring. Like everything that they were that they were trying to perpetuate, give stories to, it was all happening in the ring. And this was when Toni Storm was champion, and it was good, because then you saw the champion wrestle, and she was wrestling here, and she always looked great. And I think it added to her prestige, made her come across as a workhorse. So it made me miss those matches here. Sakura did a lot of the heavy lifting in here. I don't know if this was booked to quell the fires of the Emi defenders who were really fucking mad she didn't have a match at that she didn't have a match at Wembley. I don't know if this was but we got here. There was some miscommunication between Britt Baker and Hikaru Shida, which culminated with Britt super kicking Shida and a big splash by Statlander in the Wednesday Night Fever. I guess the name of her finisher changes depending on what night she's wrestling. Wednesday Night Fever for the win. Hey, look at this. We're breaking the TBS title bubble. We're getting women involved in the world title picture into a TBS environment here. Oh, gee, Willikers, look at that. This is interesting. This is good. I like it. Which is what they should be. They should have been doing for months. Should have done this with they should have been doing this with Jade. I'm not complaining. Better late than never. This is fine. After the match, Statlander gets blindsided by Ruby Soho, who does the no future, then makes off with the belt. She's challenging it all out this weekend. Then we have the spot, I talked about it earlier, where we have Don Callis watching tape with Takeshita, and he's doing it. It's one of these touch screens, and he's like, you got to do this. I really like that, showing x-rays of Omega's injuries. He's got no cartilage here. He's got C3, C4 are compromised, which I relate to. It's the same thing with me in my neck. So I relate to Kenny Omega. Like, what we're essentially the same person, is what I'm trying to say. So no, I like that. I like this, and Chalice outright says, if all else fails, we'll just stab him in the fucking head with a screwdriver again. And Takeshi's like, yeah, let's do this. So it would have been in another universe. We have Omega and Takeshita nose to nose, right? But we're not in that universe today. Then we get the Acclaimed who do their championship celebration. Look, this isn't for me, and it is not for me, and I hate championship celebrations. It looks too much like what the other guys do, but then again, we're doing a lot of what the other guys do. We're doing a lot of it. So, mark my words that from what I told you on Tuesday, mark my words. The more sports entertainment stuff gets into the company and is used at the highest levels of the card, the more the undercard guys and gals will want to do some. Mark my words. So honestly, they're talking about stuff. They reveal. They have a big reveal where they have pink belts for the trios titles. I don't have an opinion on it. I really don't. It doesn't bother me. I know some people are it either goes one way or the other when it comes to title redesigns, right? It's like people really hate. It's either people really hate designs for specific people, or they're really into it and it doesn't matter, or they're really into it. To me, it doesn't, like, it's nothing egregious. You're changing the color of the strap. I don't give a shit. Oh, and yes, the straps now do the scissoring thing. Hey, look, this responds perfectly. This is for the people who are super into the Acclaimed stuff. And that's fine. This is for people who are super into the Acclaimed stuff, which is not me. And I'm sure you all enjoyed it. But it's not for me. The Acclaimed stuff is not for me. But good for everyone involved. Good for Billy Gunn for having a title run at the tail end of his career. I have no issues with all of this, and I will always be I will always speak very highly of the Acclaimed and how they got themselves over. I don't want to rehash all these points that I feel like I have to rehash every fucking time I say the Acclaimed isn't for me because people think I think it's awful. I just don't like it, and I understand why. But I understand why people think it's good, and I have no issues with it outside of that. It's not for me. And I'm a big Anthony Bowens guy. I think Anthony Bowens is fantastic. You know, this guy has a career whenever this expires. He's good. He's fine. He's great, actually. He's got all the tools. Anyway, let's move on to the main event. International title match. Orange Cassidy defeated Penta Oscuro. And I thought this was a really good main event. They got over 15 minutes for this one, too. Penta gorilla presses Orange Cassidy off a tope and chucks him into the barricade. That was a cool ass spot. I loved that. The guys do dives, a tope by Cassidy and a tope con hilo by Penta. They trade destroyers, like 3 in a row. And from what I hear, people are aggravated about this on the X, on the Twitter. Of course, as you know, I am no longer... I don't post there anymore. I don't get involved, and that's anyway, I'm off of it for all the reasons I've talked about in the past. I'm on Blue Sky though right now. If you've been able to tell the bouncers that you're part of the band and you were able to get in, please find me on Blue Sky. Blue Sky's dope as hell. I'm having a good time. They trade destroyers. So people are upset that they're doing Canadian destroyers. This transition wasn't. And are we still having this fucking argument in 2023, destroyers as transitional moves? Like, at this point, if you are still harping on this, turn off your TV, stop watching modern pro wrestling. Like, this has to stop. And just like the DDT was a finisher before, it is now a transitional move. Just like the superplex used to be a finisher, it is a transitional move. The super kick and so many others. This is how wrestling evolves. This is the most boring discussion that exists in professional wrestling today. It used to be a finisher and now it's not anymore. It's been devalued. Yes, it's a transitional move. And it looks cool. Who fucking cares? I don't give a shit. Your favorite transitional move these days was very likely a true to form finisher back in the day. No one puts people away with Steiner screwdrivers anymore. You know what I mean? Like, Anyway, let's move on. Back to the match. There's this absolutely sick fear factor on the apron. Like, I thought Cassidy landed on the crown of his head. That was perfectly shot. Well done. Cassidy finished the match. She seemed fine. We're not gonna police this one. It looked gnarly, but if everyone comes out okay, not worse for wear, no one dead, no one severely injured, then they did their job as professional wrestlers to make us believe that the move looked awful or looked harsh or looked gnarly. Sick, as I said. Arm snap by Penta in the ring and a fear factor right in the middle of the ring. I thought this was done. Cassidy kicks out. I bit. And then he rolls Penta into the mousetrap for the win, like completely out of nowhere. Fantastic stuff. And then we get and the thing here with Cassidy is that he's continuing this story, this ongoing story, and he said it himself in that fiery post-match promo. Now, we're just completely not used to hearing Orange Cassidy do, but I think was necessary here, and we'll talk about it in a second. But I just want to get this out of the way. His body's breaking down. He's trying his best. He tried to do a beach break in the match and it sort of flubbed, and I think that was intentional, where he can't do his own signature / finishers anymore. We know the orange punch isn't effective. He had to have glass on his hand to take out Claudio with it. We know, like, his body is broken down in kayfabe. he's injured. He's practically just a roll of kinesio tape at this point. So this is the story they're telling, and it's been fantastic. And for months now, he's been sneaking out wins, just being the smarter guy. He can't rely on his own old things. And we're all the story in Orange Cassidy's run here is who's going to take advantage of all of his shortcomings to get us to this point. And he cuts a great promo after, fiery, talking about Mox. And it was good stuff. And you're a little taken aback because you're like, okay, Cassidy doesn't usually do this. So this made the match feel important, his match with Orange Cassidy. And quite frankly, this has to be the main event. Because there's nothing that has been built for this show that feels quite like this. I think this is the main event of the show, the international title. And he ends his promo saying, and he's all fired up, and he's saying, Jon Moxley, I'm going to beat you all out, and I'm going to remain the international champion because I'm Orange Cassidy, and I don't have a catchphrase. And this is the brilliance of that promo, where you have something that feels completely out of character for Orange Cassidy, something that he's not supposed to be talking like this. He's not supposed to be fired up. This is a laid back dude. This is a guy that, he doesn't get bothered by anything. He's chill as fuck. So there's a bit of a character break, but then just with that final line, he brings it all right back to, we have not lost the essence of Orange Cassidy. This is still it. We got it. There's the joke, and it works in character. And I'm going to tell you, Orange Cassidy, who was a comedy wrestler, who did comedy bits, has elevated himself to this point, who has been pushed to this point, and he has adapted his style to not just come across as a guy who does bits, who does comedy, who can be taken seriously as a pro wrestler. And this was in motion before the international title run, but the international title run has only solidified that. Don't forget, last year at Forbidden Door, he was fighting Will Ospreay. Now, it wasn't a comedy match. This was not a Yano Will Ospreay match from a G1 somewhere. That match was fantastic. And people have been clamoring for, the cream of these pro wrestling. He wrestled Shibata. We want a proper Orange Cassidy Zack Sabre Jr. match, which is a match I feel like a lot of us who were into Forbidden Door this year in 2023, we feel we got cheated out of. This is something I think we would have really liked. Probably the politics of the titles got in the way, but this is something I think everyone would love to see. There's a lot of things people want to see with Orange Cassidy now. And a lot of people woke up last night, but we've been on this train. Here at the Mr. Warren Hayes Show, we've been on this train for months, for well over a year. Legendary run that Cassidy is having right now with the international title. It's hard to... Gunther maybe having something similar with the IC title, but he hasn't packed in the amount of matches that Orange Cassidy has. Gunther's matches are fantastic, don't get me wrong. Not trying to do, it's maybe not as apples to apples as we might imagine, is what I'm trying to say. This ruled. And then Moxley comes down for the stare down. What more do you want? That's your main event. That's what you do. That's what you do. And moving forward, if Orange Cassidy within the next year is not part of, is not a legitimate part of the main event scene, there's a bunch of guys who should be in here. Hangman Adam Page should be back there. Swerve Strickland should be in the main event picture. Orange Cassidy should be in the main event picture. Cassidy is so over, it's ridiculous. Over in every building, people love him, kids get dressed up, adults get dressed up as him. So what are we even doing? We're sitting on a gold mine. That was Dynamite. What did I think of the show overall? It's hit and miss for me, but I enjoyed it overall. It's not going to be like, I liked it, but, we're not going to sit down and say, oh, this is one of the greatest of all time. And, a lot of people have been calling it a failure. If there was anything, I think that it did not feel like a big show. Like it didn't feel like an important show coming off of the biggest pro wrestling show of all time, if that makes sense. That I will completely agree with. And I think that's what, maybe expectations were a little high. Maybe the energy level wasn't there, but I thought overall, good show. Things are happening. And we got some good matches out of it all. It's going to be one that we're going to just relegate to history. Nothing super notable, but absolutely definitely not a bad television show at all. But we're going to wrap this up right here, and hopefully you didn't think this was bad either. Thank you very much for joining me, for listening. Again, one last pitch for likes and subscribes on YouTube and reviews and ratings on the audio side of things. As I mentioned earlier, I will be back on Sunday for a last-minute Collision review before we all settle in for All Out. In the meantime, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next time.